All right, so 42 is a biopic about one of the most famous baseball players of all time, Jackie Robinson, and you got Chadwick Boseman playing Jackie Robinson. One of the best roles, honestly, that he's played, and he has played a lot of really great roles. I know he's played Jackie Brown before in Get On Up. I have not seen that movie, but obviously he's great as Black Panther. What was that one? Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He was really good in that. Really great actor. Gone too soon. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. This movie is written and directed by Brian Helgeland. Probably saying that wrong. Yeah, Helgeland. That's what I'm going with. And I know you might be wondering right now, like, are you randomly reviewing 42? Well, right now I actually have COVID, so I'm stuck at home, and I recently bought 42 for my Voodoo account and wanted to rewatch it. I had watched it one other time before this, and yeah, watching it just gives me an excuse to review something for the channel that I haven't really. Well, I have reviewed it before, but it was back when I just did the, audio form only podcast episodes on YouTube. So I haven't done like its own dedicated video. So I thought, hey, might as well do that. But yeah. Also, right now I'm watching Ted Lasso. Don't know how quickly I'm going to finish that. I think the third season might come out next month, so I might hold off on my review until next month when that third season drops and I watch it. But I think I'm going to be watching Walk the Line as well. If not tonight, then tomorrow. So I'll have that review up too. And hoping I'll test negative by Thursday so I can go see Nope. If not Thursday, at least by Friday, so I can go see that movie and review it. But yeah, let's talk about 42. Like I said, Chadwick Boseman as Jackie Robinson. Then you also have Harrison Ford as Branch Rickey. And that's pretty much like the two main characters for you there. But you also have T.R. Knight as Harold Parrott, Nicole Berry, hopefully I'm saying that right, as Rachel Robinson. We have Christopher Maloney as Leo Dorcher, probably saying that wrong. Ryan Merriman as Dixie Walker. We got Lucas Black as Pee Wee Reese, Andre Holland as Wendell Smith, Alan Tudyk as Ben Chapman, Hamish Linklater as Ralph Branca, John C. McGinley as Red Barber, Toby Huss as Clyde Sukeforth. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Probably not. Max Gale as Burt Shotton, and Brad Beyer as Kirby Higby. And I'll go ahead and stop there for the sake of time. But yeah, I mean, I've recently been getting into baseball. Like this summer, I mean, I've never really been a huge sports fan. I went to basketball camp a couple of summers with my cousin, but aside from that, I've never really had too much interest in sports. This summer, I'm like, I've always wanted to like sports and enjoy sports, so why don't I just try it? So I've been going to like some baseball games this summer and whatnot. Been watching a lot of Zach Hampel on YouTube. Definitely go check out his videos. Hopefully in the off season, I can try and get him on the podcast. We kind of spoke a little bit back and forth about trying to get him on, but you know, he's very busy during the season, so maybe the off season I can get him on here. But yeah, I've recently been getting into baseball. My favorite team right now, I am a Michigander. It should be the Detroit Tigers, but I really do like the Blue Jays, so that's the team I often root for. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr., great player on that team. Who else do they have on there? Bo Bichette, he's also really good. Yeah, I like the Blue Jays. Plus, Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. played for the Lansing Lugnuts, which I grew up in Lansing, don't live there now. But yeah, it's just cool to have those two players. Literally, they were on the same team on the Lugnuts at the same time, and now they're both in the same or on the same team at the same time with the Blue Jays. So I think the Blue Jays used to be affiliated with the Lansing Lugnuts. So that basically means their players are more, when they go pro, they're more likely to end up at the team that they're affiliated with. But I'll stop bothering you and boring you with that baseball stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of people who clicked on this video who like baseball, and there's plenty of people who just like the movie aspects and don't really care about baseball. And that's why this movie is perfect, because you don't need to like baseball to like this movie. It's definitely more about Jackie Robinson's story. I mean, there are baseball scenes, but the way that it's filmed, it makes you feel really excited when you're watching them play, and makes you feel like you're on the, I was about to say field. Well, I guess it's kind of a field, but makes you feel like you're on the diamond with Jackie, watching him go from base to base. And I mean, that's something that watching baseball on TV you can't necessarily do. I mean, they try their best, but when it comes to the movies, it's just easier to get those shots and make you feel like you're really in it. But um, like I said, you don't need to like baseball or really sports in general to really like this movie, because if you just look at it from a performance stand wise, this is one of Chadwick Boseman's best performances, hands down. Um, I mean, if you're a history buff, that's also a really good thing that will make you like this movie because it takes place in the late 20s. And yeah, for me, that's something I really like about it. I like a lot of period pieces being, movies that take place in the past. I mean, there's plenty of movies that take place in the 80s, plenty of shows like Stranger Things, but it's like 70s, like up to the 70s, and then maybe all the way down to like the 20s is like the period piece kind of movies that I find myself most interested in. But I love history. I've always been a history buff. I actually took a sports history class in high school in my senior year, and at that time I really just did not like sports whatsoever, and it ended up being one of my favorite classes that I ever took. So um you know when it comes to the history of sports, I just find it to be really interesting. I mean, you have this takes place like right after World War II, or like opens up right after World War II. Um, and before that time, when all the men were off at the war, off in the war in Germany or wherever they ended up, um, there was the women baseball league. So you had like there's a movie, A League of Their Own, with Tom Hanks in there. Um, there's no crying in baseball. I'm sure a lot of people know that line. That's what that's from. And that was during that time when the men were off at war, and so nobody was there to play baseball, so the women ended up playing baseball. And when they got back, they're just like, yeah, that's kind of cool that you did that, but fuck that. Yeah, get on out of here. We're going to play baseball again. But also, sorry for the F bomb in case there's any kids watching. I do most of the time put these videos on, like, not for kids, but I don't age restrict it because most of the time it's just a couple F bombs. But yeah, um, like I said, Chadwick Boseman as Jackie Robinson in this film is absolutely phenomenal. If you have not watched this film, I highly recommend it. Um, if you're uncomfortable, excuse me, hiccups. If you're uncomfortable with the usage of the N word in movies, maybe it's not for you. Um, I wouldn't say I'm comfortable with it, but when you're watching something that takes place in the 1920s about, a black person trying to be in an all-white league, that's kind of what you have to expect, especially with Alan Tudyk's character, which is Ben Chapman. That dude's a real piece of shit. Spoiler alert for the movie when his character shows up, but god damn, he was not a good dude. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Jackie had to deal with, and there's a lot of stuff that black people in general had to deal with, especially in this time, trying to be the first to do something. Like, he was the first black person to really be on any major league team with, white players. So you can imagine that it would be, it would be a really challenging thing for someone like him to have to go through that, and for the teammates to try and accept him. And there's some teammates that he was on the team with that didn't accept it. There's some that left, some that got traded, and then there's some that just stayed and still wasn't happy about it, but still. And let me talk about Branch Rickey for a minute, played by Harrison Ford. In this film, he seems, and I hear this word thrown around a lot in these types of movies, he's not necessarily a white savior in this film. A white savior basically being like a white person coming to the black person's rescue. I wouldn't say he necessarily is. In fact, I would say his motivations are slightly more selfish than the movie leads on, because this is this is based on a true story. It doesn't mean that everything in here is true. So Branch Rickey might have actually just been doing this completely for himself and for the money. And he even talks about it a couple times, like, imagine the money I could make doing this. So at times his motives felt very selfish, but at the same time, he had those moments with Jackie where it's like, I'm on your side, I'm here to help you, and I want you to succeed. So again, I don't know how much of it is actually true. Um, that's just kind of something you have to deal with and live with when it comes to these types of movies based on a true story. You don't always know how much of it is actually true or not. But I would like to think that Branch Rickey was actually in his corner like that, especially in the moments when, he had to deal with Ben Chapman's character, which was the manager for the Phillies at the time. But the nice thing about that is, how at a lot of the end of a lot of these types of movies, they say like, oh, this person went on to go do this. Yeah, they said like Ben Chapman never went on to manage another team for as long as he lived, which I was just like, that's perfect, that's great. Um, but yeah, I love feeling like I'm sucked into the time period when I'm watching a film. That's kind of what Elvis did wrong for me. That's partially why I want to watch Walk the Line now too. That'll probably be my next review. Just because I'm stuck at home. But yeah, that's what Elvis did wrong with a lot of these biopics. They don't make you feel like you're in the movie. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody I think did a really good job. Rocket Man, I don't like it as much as Bohemian Rhapsody, but I do like Rocket Man. My problem with Elvis is just how quickly paced it is, and you don't feel like you can breathe in any scene. It's just going by so quickly, and you never fully feel like you're actually just like there in that time period. And that's something I think Walk the Line does really well. That's something I think this movie does pretty well, but at times this does have slightly like a slight pacing issue as well. Um, if I only had to give one complaint to this movie, it would be the pacing. And even that, I don't really think is that bad. It jumps around a little bit, but it keeps it moving to a point where you're like not getting bored from a specific scene. I was never bored watching this movie. I'm sure there's some people that would be bored watching this movie, but um, for the most part, like I can't say it had me on the edge of my seat, but by the final game in the film, I definitely felt like it did. Um, but I don't know, it keeps it going at a good pace, but at times you feel like they're kind of rushing over certain things, which happens with most movies. This movie's like 2 hours and however many minutes, so they probably had to cut some certain things down, I would imagine. But yeah, the only complaint I really have to give to this movie is there's just a slight pacing issue, ever so slight. Also, don't expect this to be about Jackie Robinson's whole life if you haven't watched this. It's basically about him from like, I don't know exactly what age he was when the movie opened up, but I would say like in his 20s at least, up until I don't even know when, but they never make it fully clear like how old he is at any certain time, but I don't know. It's not really a complaint with me. But yeah, the big thing to take out of this is not only the history of it, but the performances brought by the different actors in here, specifically Chadwick Boseman. I think he absolutely killed it as Jackie Robinson. If you have not watched this movie, do yourself a favor and check it out. Even if you're not really a baseball fan, I think there's something in this movie for everybody. So, yeah, like I said, do yourself a favor and go watch it. I'm not sure what streaming service it would be on right now. Like I said, I had to buy it, so you might have to figure that out, but I think I'm going to give this movie an 8.5. Let's just go with a solid 8 out of 10. That feels more right. Yeah, really great movie, really great performances, and like I said, love period pieces, and I'm really getting into baseball too, so that probably helps too. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. I will see you in the next one where I should be reviewing Walk the Line, the Joaquin Phoenix Johnny Cash movie. That is if I decide to go through with that and actually watch it, or if I just decide to continue Ted Lasso, which is actually really good so far. So I might do that, might not, we'll see. But I will see you guys in the next one. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Pop Culture Podcast. See you later.